Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. My partner, Ryan Holmes, will be back next episode. Actually, this is going to be a two-part episode because Derek Carr signed an extension. I'll talk about the Derek Carr stuff, and then we'll go into the Raiders' complete roster, kind of breakdown of each position group. In the next part of this podcast. And next time we talk, we'll do a mock draft, head-to-head mock draft with myself, Ryan Holmes, and then we'll also get Ryan's take on all things Derek Carr extension, all those things like that. So, but first, just want to get on the YouTube here to kind of in the podcast. Thank you for joining us here on the Put On Raiders podcast. Derek Carr signs an extension. 3 years, whatever, not great money as far as guarantees. But I think the biggest thing that for me is we have a situation where part of this fan base can't stand Derek Carr and some love Derek Carr. On this show, we try to stay kind of in the middle. I mean, he's the quarterback of the team until he's not the quarterback of the team. And right now he is the quarterback of the team. I think it's pretty clear that, this free agency has changed dramatically for the Raiders because once all these teams in the AFC West made their moves, we were 2 days in the free agency and everybody was basically calling for Ziegler's head. What the hell is Josh McDaniels doing? And then all of a sudden, Chandler Jones got called in. Next thing you know, you're looking at somebody like and Devontae Adams, who seemed like a pipe dream for many of us, including for us on the show. I didn't see a way they could get Devontae Adams, but we didn't know the inner workings of Green Bay and how that whole situation was. I mean, we didn't know that he was trying to get out of there. We didn't know that he was trying to come play with Derek. For people who, I'll talk about people who hate Derek first. This does not meet the criteria for people who hate Derek, because when he got made fun of when Antonio Brown froze his feet off to not play with him, people said Crabtree didn't want to play with him either, that he had problems with Waller, all these things like that. So the best receiver in football leaves Aaron Rodgers to come play with Derek Carr. That kind of ruins that narrative. So you talk about the folks who love Derek. This is a great opportunity for them because now the roster is set. You have the best. You have what all these other quarterbacks have. You have a tremendous allotment of talent at the wide receiver position, at the tight end position, and in that running back room. So we'll have to see what happens there. My feelings is this: people have been talking about Derek leaving or trying to get the rumors about Derek. And I've said it for millions of times, Derek is not going anywhere. He wasn't going anywhere in the Gruden era. He's not going anywhere in the Josh McDaniels era, because no matter how you feel about Derek Carr, the person, the player, whatever, it is very difficult to find even a Derek Carr. It just is. So the only guy who was really available was a free agent or a trade. You could have swung a trade to try to go get Deshaun Watson, who has 22, 23, 24, who knows how many alleged sexual situations with masseuses all over the country. I mean, that's the guy who you, after going through Ruggs, after going through Arnett, Hobbs has had some situations. As good as he is, Cleveland kind of blew up the game here by going out and get him. Derek, you don't have to worry about those things. But even if you view Derek Carr, and I know people said, give up on the season because you're the worst quarterback in the division. But even if you view him as the worst quarterback in the division, whether it's true or not, whether how you feel about it, they are absolutely loaded on offense. Devontae Adams is tremendous. Hunter Renfrow, the versatility in which they and what they can do offensively with Darren Waller. In the press conference, the Carr talked about Foster Moreau. I don't love Foster Moreau. Maybe that's a good friend, a good buddy of his. He wants to keep on the team. I fully expect the Raiders to draft a tight end in this draft to see what they can do as far as improving there, because they love tight ends in New England. I'm sure he loves tight ends going forward with the allotment of tight ends they already have. But the weapons are there. The weapons are all over the place. So, not to mention that, if you're Brian Edwards or if you're Brian Edwards or you're one of these other receivers like Hollins or Robinson, you got to be saying to yourself, if I can, there's an opportunity here for me to really make a mark on this team, because I'm going to be up against a backup or a third or fourth cornerback. I can make my move there as well. So after they got Adams, as happy as Raider Nation was, at the split they have on Derek was kind of funny to me, because I think once you get Devontae Adams and the history of life of Derek's career with Devontae Adams, it was pretty clear that he was going to get an extension. In his extension, he wanted to make sure that people like Renfrow and people like Renfrow and Foster Moreau or other players could get their contracts, could get re-upped, if you will, get extensions. That was important to Derek. And as far as that team player thing, his agent probably was like, he has to go talk to his clients and say, listen, Derek was on his own on this one, because Derek truly has said over and over again that he would not play for anybody else. And I think, he's kind of proven that, because if he wanted to push the envelope for more money, he could have got Kirk Cousins money from somebody. The Raiders could have traded him to to even Cleveland or Indianapolis. Those teams at the combine were a quote unquote, hunting after Derek Carr pretty vigorously. But once you get a play caller, and I've been saying this for a long time, once you get a play caller who is one of the decision makers, Carr isn't going anywhere. And he's not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Everybody's saying like, oh, they can get out of this deal. Like Mike Florio and other people saying that this deal is not that good, all this stuff like that. But the caveat is this: like, what are you going to do when the guy has a no trade clause? He literally has a no trade clause in the contract. I'm not going to get to the numbers, the guaranteed, but are you just going to cut Derek Carr 3 days after the Super Bowl? Come on. Let's just be realistic here for the people who don't like Derek. Like, he's the quarterback. You're coming to the end. At some point in the next 3 or 4 years, he won't be the quarterback anymore, and then you can cheer. But for the most part, he's going to be the quarterback, and we'll have to see what happens with Derek Carr going forward. This could be an exciting season for the Raiders. It should be the exciting season for the Raiders. I think this is the first time, and they still have moves to make, but this is the first time I've looked at our Raider roster and said to myself, there is not a team that I'm scared to play. They play the Rams. I think they can win that game. They play the Chargers. I think they can win that game. You put a team on there on that list, I feel like the Raiders could compete with anybody. And that's something that's very difficult to say as far as going forward, is like, wow, the Raiders actually have a team that you feel like they can beat anybody in football, that brings expectations, and that brings, how can they win the Super Bowl? Can they be a team that goes to the AFC Championship game? And for me, that's a welcome conversation. Instead of, there's been Raider seasons where we're talking about the draft in week 5. Now they're talking about Super Bowl, and they should be talking about Super Bowl. They really should. Don't shy away from it. Take it one game at a time. But like, honest to God, that is definitely 100% the conversation in Vegas right now, and Henderson, that this team is good enough to go to the Super Bowl. And this is what you're seeing now is the reason why they needed a new stadium, they needed new facilities, why they needed to have more cash flow coming into the Raiders, because you need that guaranteed money. And they gave that guaranteed money to Chandler Jones. They gave that guaranteed money to Devontae Adams. Gave that guaranteed money to Derek Carr. And there's more to come. There's more to come. So I'm not gonna take too much of your time here on Derek Carr extension. I'll let Ryan talk about that next time. Don't be shy. Spread the word, comment, and subscribe to the Put on Raiders podcast and the Put on Waivers Media Group. USC fans, we're coming for you as well. Everybody to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting out the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. Got some heat coming. Supposed to be like 90 degrees next couple of days. That's all good with me. Ryan, how are you today?
Good. It was hot here today. It was 91. It's supposed to be in the mid 90s tomorrow before cooling off next week, but doing good.
Yeah, good. So our TPOW podcast is my Twitter handle, and RHOLM22 is Ryan. So hit us up on Twitter. This is like a little bit calm before the storm with the drafts coming up real quick. So we wanted to kind of reset the Raider rooms, if you will, because they made a lot of moves this offseason to try to get and to build this team in the vision of Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, and comment, all that good stuff here. And also for this podcast and the Student Body Right USC podcast. So let's start off. Let's see here. Let's go with defense first. Special team really didn't change much. Same cast of characters there. But let's start off with the cornerbacks. That seems like we're one of the spots that people talk about it where the Raiders want to make some changes. So corner, you got Rock Ya-Sin. You also have Nate Hobbs. You have still have Amik Robinson and Darius Phillips on this roster, it looks like, and then Cravon LeBlanc is on this staff. So some of those guys are gonna be special team players. But let's talk about like the frontline guys. Rock Ya-Sin has played a lot in this in corner as well. I also forgot on Trayvon. This is the right side for Trayvon Mullen as well, and Anthony Everett as well. Thoughts about, let's start with Trayvon first. I mean, he's a guy who people like. He looks like he has that build to be a good corner, but he just hasn't played enough snaps, at least last year, to really kind of make his mark.
Yeah, Trayvon Mullen's going to get every opportunity to battle for a starting job here. I think it's going to come down to him or Hobbs, opposite of Rock Ya-Sin, who I think is going to be penciled in as a starter and probably earn that job. He's in the last year of a contract. They traded United Ngakoue to get him. He's going to start, barring a collapse in training camp. But Mullen's going to have to beat out Hobbs. I think that's going to be the competition to start opposite Rock Ya-Sin. I think Mullen has more upside. And can be a better fit in this defense, and leaving Hobbs inside at the slot is probably the route they're going to go. Mullen is in a contract year too. He signed a 4-year deal as a second-round pick, so he's going to have to go out there and prove it. I think the injury last year was unfortunate. It was a lower body injury. It was a foot injury, and that kept him out for a long time. So he was pretty good when he played his second year, and then obviously the injury derailed him last year. So if he can just stay healthy and go out and play, I think they have two competent corners there in Mullen and Rock Ya-Sin, but I don't think either one makes it to the point where they're going to pass up another free agent if they're on the market in June, or if there's a corner they like in the 3rd or 4th round to add to this room. But I do like the depth behind those three guys. Anthony Everett started for Baltimore last year. He can come in and play. I don't remember what the contract status there. I want to say it was a 1-year deal.
It was a 1-year deal.
And then Phillips, I believe, was also a 1-year deal. Amik Robertson's going to battle in camp. And then Cravon LeBlanc's a special teams guy with some versatility that was in New England with Ziegler and McDaniels. So if you look down the road 2-3 years, none of these guys are really under contract other than Hobbs. So I don't think they're done making moves there if they can find upgrades, but I think if they go into the season with the top four guys clearly being Yasin, Mullen, Hobbs, and Averett, that's pretty good. And then Phillips can also play in the slot. So I like the competition in that room. Do they have a clear-cut number one? No. Do they have a couple of guys that can be number twos? Probably. So it's going to come down to pass rush again and scheme.
Yeah, no question about that. But I do listen. You want that big contract or get that 5th year. You gotta get pushed. So I think some of these guys definitely gonna get pushed. Interesting to see what happens to see how Meek Robinson fits in here. I just like does he have to really play big if you're gonna be a smaller corner. So we'll see what happens there. And Nate Hobbs, I mean, this is a different kind of slot playing the slot here than it is for Gus Bradley, right?
Yeah, a lot more man coverage. He's going to have a lot more responsibilities other than, just dropping into a specific, zone, playing hook curl. He played a little bit of man in Gus Bradley's scheme, but this is going to be completely different. So he's going to have to show that he can do that. He didn't. I know a lot of Raider fans want to think that he can. We don't know that he can. He wasn't great in man coverage in college, and clearly he wasn't really tested last year playing man coverage. So he's going to need to step up. I believe he can do it. He just hasn't done it yet.
Yeah. And I also think last year in the preseason he showed some ball skills as well too. So hopefully that is with the pass rush, quarterback's trying to get the ball out quick, maybe get some turnovers there. But still nobody in that room prevents the Raiders from going out and getting a corner who might get released after June 1st or Stephon Gilmore. Safeties. Jonathan Abram, Trayvon Morag, Duron Harmon, Roderick Teamer, Tyra Gillespie, and then everybody's favorite, Daniel Levitt. I still waiting to see a Daniel Levitt jersey when I go to a Raider game. I would love to see it. Yeah, I'd love to see it. So Abram is, listen, really before he got hurt, I think it was one of the league leaders in defensive backs tackling or tackles, whatever. So he's a tackling machine as far as that goes. But we all know if you get him in space, it's like my friend said, a cat with a laser pointer. I mean, it's pretty easy to get fooled. To get that's probably the best analogy I've heard for Jonathan Abram in coverage. But Roderick Teamer can fill in. We saw him fill in just a little bit there. And then last year, and he also was a guy who played some special teams as well. Tyra Gillespie, from Missouri, was who happens here. Kind of a rookie season that we don't know much about him as far as what he can do. But are they trying to? Morag has that range, the length, and all that stuff you like about it. The Abram is what in this Patrick Graham defense, because people want him to be good. Raider fans want him to be good, but I don't know what he actually is in this defense, because he just is not a guy who can cover.
Yeah, so they're going to play a lot of dime in this defense with Patrick Graham. So they're going to have three safeties on the field quite a bit. Hopefully Abram can play down closer to the box like he did last year. It's going to be completely different than last year. So the improvements he showed in the cover three scheme, basically playing in the flat or the hook curl and then just reacting and making tackles in open space is going to be completely different here. He's going to have to disguise coverages, which he's not very good at. He's pretty blatant when he tries to disguise coverages and tips the offense to what's going to happen. He's going to have to be interchangeable with Morag as far as, can he go down the slot and play man? Can he switch responsibilities when the passing strength of the offense changes? I don't think he can do that. He hasn't shown that he can do that. So for me, I think they're still in the market for a safety here, another free safety. I think Teamer and Leverett are here to battle for a special teams backup job. I don't anticipate they both make this team. Gillespie, we just don't know. And Harmon, to me, is kind of just a security blanket. He started in the league. They know him from New England. He'll be able to fit in if they need him. He just can't run anymore. So it's hard to envision him having a huge role in this defense. It's kind of like, well, if we don't get anyone we like in the draft or in free agency, at least he's a capable fill-in. But I don't think he's a guy they want to count on playing a vast majority of snaps over 17 weeks. It's a guy that can fill in here or there. It wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't on this roster. If they found someone else to come in, but at least they have a guy who's played in this league and can fill in. But I just don't think he brings the speed or the ability to play deep that he used to be when he was a younger player. So I believe they still need to go out and get a safety here to fill in on this defense.
And he's and Tyree is just too green behind the ears to actually think he's going to make an impact, right?
Yeah, so his tape in college, he was good coming downhill and filling alleys and making tackles. He was okay in coverage, but didn't have a ton of ball skills. I'm just off the top of my head, I don't remember that he had a ton of interceptions.
Yeah.
He wasn't a guy that made a ton of plays on the ball. It was more being physical in the run game. He has the speed to do it. I just don't know if he has the instincts to it. He might, but he could be a guy that maybe if they had to play Harmon for a few weeks and let Gillespie kind of go work into that role, and by mid-season hand it over to him, they could do that. Yep. Are they okay saying, okay, week 1, Gillespie, you're starting opposite Merrick? I don't think they're there.
No, not there. I agree. So let's see here. We got Jaron Brown, Kyler Fackrell, Denzel Perryman, Micah Kaiser, and then everybody's favorite, Raider favorite. They love the number 5 jersey, Divine Diablo, who showed a little bit of leadership and showed he can play a little bit last year as well. This is a pretty competitive room here. Some different, everybody brings a little bit of, kind of a different piece to the puzzle here. Brown and Diablo look like they're gonna be guys who can go do a lot of different things and also cover. And Fackrell, was it Fackrell or Fackrell was the guy Fackrell was the linebacker, the edge guy who can make plays in the backfield. So what are your thoughts about this room?
Well, like those 4 inside guys, I think, you're good there. You don't really need to make any upgrades. Obviously, Perryman is what he is. He's a force in the running game. Probably won't be on the field much on passing downs. And if you pair him with Diablo on the inside, that's a good pairing. Jayon Brown can run and cover. He's a guy that can come in and play the nickel and spell Perryman if you need to. And I think you're pretty good if you go Diablo and Brown and nickel situations, especially in passing downs. And then Kaiser's a really good special teams guy. He knows the special team coach, Tom McMahon, coming over from Denver. And when he played for the Rams, he's played in this defense, this man match, kind of cover 7 defense, too high, multiple coverages. His issue is he just needs to stay healthy. He's been hurt a lot, but he's a solid backup. Can he step in for a week or 2 and start if something happened to Diablo? Yeah, he can do that. Is he a guy you want starting 10 games a year, 10 plus games? Probably not, but is a 3rd or 4th backer that can bring special teams value, he's fine. So I like those 4 inside guys. I think they're all pretty much a lock to make the roster.
Yeah, I think they're looking pretty good there, but kind of some unique pieces there. I like that a lot. Defensive tackle, Jonathan Hankins is back, which I thought the minute when Patrick Graham got interviewed and he said that he coached them before, I was like, he's coming back, and he's coming back, and he fits what he wants to do. I think there's an interview. There's not an interview, but a story written by Mo Moten, who was on our show not too long ago, about below Nichols and how he can fit in this defense too. So I think that's a good read as well. You got Kendall Vickers, Vernon Butler, Kyle Pico, and then you have Andrew Billings. He wants a different type of defensive tackle than Gus Bradley. I think he got a lot of those pieces here. But does he have like a guy, who can really kind of get a inside pass rush, or is he not looking for that right now? He's looking for more of a guys who can just stop the run.
He's looking for run stoppers. He's going to play an odd front with three men, most likely down, that are all going to be 300 pounds. We talked about this on the show. When just go look at the roster he had in New York, they were all 300, 320, 340. The key to this is bringing back Hankins. I've always liked Hankins. When you watch the film, he can still be a force in the running game. If you single block Hankins in the running game, he can be a factor. He'll hold up in double teams, he can hold up there and allow the linebackers to run free. He's probably going to play the nose or zero technique or one technique in this defense. And then you're going to use a couple of 300-pound defensive ends that aren't going to give you much pass rush. But they're in there basically to occupy the linemen so the linebackers can run around and make plays, which is going to allow Chandler Jones and Max Crosby to work outside as outside 3-4 linebackers, where you're going to match them up against tight ends and running backs. So I'm just having visions of watching if the fronts are played right, you're going to be able to match those guys up against even smaller guys. They're not going to have to go against tackles so much. So their sack production can go up. The key is those guys inside have to hold up. and stop the run. And then when you go to a nickel, and clearly you go to a two-man line on the inside, then you bring in nickels that can be the pass rusher, and then you just rotate guys in and hope that, Vickers or Farrell or Billings or someone can get a little bit of pressure from time to time. The key to this is going to be nickels. He's going to have to provide pass rush in the nickel, and then Hankins, hopefully he's not rushing the passer much. Get off the field and just let him be that true run-stopping guy and see if he can hold up. But all these guys are huge. Hankins, Butler, Petco, Billings, they're all 310, 320, 340. So you're not going to get a lot of sack production out of those guys, but that's not their role in this defense.
Yeah, and Darius is just too small for this one, huh? Darius Philon, I just love. Obviously, if you got to pay him, you got to play him a whole lot. It's a different story. But like when the times he came in, he really did a good job. But he doesn't fit, so he's not going to be here. But yeah, I just like watching Darius Philon play last year.
Well, Darius Philon's a one-gap penetrator, and they don't have that in this defense on the defensive line. These guys are two-gapping and basically just holding up the point of attack and taking on
freeing up everything for
they're freeing up everyone else.
Yeah.
So you don't need to spend a lot of money on those guys. You just need to have functional big bodies that can hold up in that job. Like Lawrence Guy has done it forever in New England. He never gets to the quarterback, but that's kind of what you're looking for.
That's what he does. Yeah, that's what he does. Right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't do any sack production out of him. Let's see the edge. We got Cleveland Farrell. We got Max Crosby. Let's see here. Chandler Jones. Malcolm Kuntz, and then Jerry Green. So this is the part of the team where you have two guys on the edge. You talked about when they got Chandler Jones that this guy, be careful, look at his stats, he might be
he's a Hall of Famer.
We're wearing that jacket, right? I mean, he puts up some huge numbers as well, comes back and work with somebody he's familiar with, and then Max Crosby can really work with any defense. Just that absolute motor that he has to go get the quarterback is absolutely amazing. Kind of leader of that defense. He's, he tweeted out, do you remember the show Robin Big?
Yeah.
Robin Big. So Rob Dudak was on that. He basically has that show on MTV called Ridiculousness. If you look at your guide, it's just ridiculousness the entire day. He just plays that show. MTV plays that show the entire day. But he talked about how Mike Crosby put this on his Instagram today, talking about if I get up at Rob Dudak was like, over time, if I keep getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be able to achieve more than the next person who's trying to do what I do, because I can, I'm already up like 2 or 3 hours before them already. And like over time, that's just like how many weeks, how many hours, I'm creating a separate work week by doing that. And Max Crosby is kind of that guy. Like he still goes he's in that facility. He's doing what he has to do. He's up in that, and he sets the standard for this defensive unit. And being that workhorse, when your best player is your hardest worker. I mean, that's like gold right there when you're coaching.
Yeah, I think the edge position in this defense, I think they're still looking to add here. You're going to have a ton of depth, because that's where your sack production is going to come from. Mm-hmm. Unless you're blitzing a ton with the inside guys like Jayon Brown or Divine Diablo, the sack production is absolutely coming from those two edge guys, Jones and Crosby. But there's not much behind them. Frackrell flashed in 2018 to have 10.5 sacks with the Packers. Malcolm Kuntz is still, he flashes on tape, but can you trust him if one of those guys gets hurt?
Yep.
And you have to have waves of pass rushers, 3-4 outside backers. Jerry Green to me is probably not going to make this team as a 3-4 outside linebacker. So they're going to add a guy or two late in the draft, put him on the practice squad, and you have to just, like Pittsburgh, just have guys that can come in and be those outside linebackers. The 3-4 defense to me is great because I think it's cheaper to assemble.
Yes.
Because you can get those outside, and I'm going to say that, but they just gave a ton of money to Jones and Crosby. Those are different animals, but you can get those kind of misfits in a 4-3 defense, but they're not, big enough. Like Farrell's kind of misfit in this defense because he probably doesn't fit anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But you can find these guys 3rd, 4th, 5th round in the draft that can be effective 3-4 outside edge rushers, especially if they have a reduced role early in their career and they can physically get in the weight room and add weight. So they're going to have plenty of options to get a guy in like the 4th or 5th round to add to this roster. Farrell, to me, it's tough. I see a lot of Raider fans think he's going to bulk up and they're going to put him inside and he's going to play defensive end in 3-4. I don't think that. I think we're going to see him kind of even be leaner than he was last year. I think last year he probably played around 265, 270. I could see him getting 255, 260 and being another backup edge rusher, because he's going to have run when he goes into play. Those outside backers are basically playing the C gap or D gap if there's a tight end. So they're playing outside the tackle or outside the tight end, and they have to be able to hold the point. They have to set the point in this defense. Farrell can do that. But he's not going to be a pass rush threat at 280 pounds in this defense. So I could see him leaning up and just trying to just become, an edge rusher and play a little bit of 3-4 outside linebacker in this defense, more so than I see him playing inside as a 5 technique.
It's in it.
That's just my opinion.
Was it Mekhi Becton was the one tackle he owns in the NFL? Like if he owns
the Jets,
the Jets. I remember that Jet game, the Hail Mary to Ruggs at the end. Not Hail Mary, but the big play to Ruggs. But that was like the most. That was like the one. That was the most sack production or explosiveness I've seen from him. But looking at the Giants last year and their like sack distribution last year, so Azeez Ojulari. Ojulari, almost had it first time. I'm terrible at those, so sorry, Aziz. But he had 8 sacks last year. Leonard Williams had 6.5. Lorenzo Carter had 5, and then Austin Johnson and Dexter Lawrence had like 3.5 and 2 there. So Logan Ryan had, and then he had some from the secondary as well. So they had 34 sacks overall, but I mean that doesn't tell the whole story of a defense. But I'm just kind of give people an idea of what's going on as far as that goes. Go ahead.
With Farrell, when I say I see him playing more outside linebacker, I think early on rundowns, first, second down, bring him in to give those edge guys a break. I'm not saying he's going to go play 20, 30 snaps a game at outside linebacker. Can they find a role for him first, second down, every 3 series to give those guys a break and let him play 10 snaps a game out there? Yeah, he could probably do that. But yeah, I just don't think that he's going to bulk up and go inside. I just don't see that. That's just not the type of body type that Patrick Graham uses.
Yeah, I would say I agree with you with the depth, because whether it's Kuntz or Farrell, I mean I think they might look for another established guy to bring in, because let's not have Max. I love Max Crosby. We all love Max Crosby, but can we reduce some snaps a little bit? Like, can we reduce some of the snaps and get some production there as well too? Because you don't want to have him playing as many snaps as he did last year.